Welcome to Wesley Impact. I'm Keith Garner. As I prepare to move on to the next phase of my ministry, I sat down with respected Australian journalist and radio host Simon Marnie to discuss my ministry and my time at Wesley Mission. I hope you enjoy the conversation filmed here in the Wesley Centre.
Welcome to this special episode of Wesley Impact TV. As Keith mentioned, the tables are turned today, and while he usually interviews guests on this program, today it's my privilege to interview Keith. Today's episode is the first in a two-part conversation filmed in front of a live audience at the Wesley Centre as we reflect with Keith on his life and his ministry prior to migrating to Australia with his wife Carol in 2005. And of course, we'll be looking over the past 15 years as his role of leader of the Wesley Mission. Keith, how nice to have the tables turned.
It's a pleasure, I think.
I want to go back to those early days because your calling was always very apparent, even if the path there wasn't the easiest path.
No, that's true. I didn't come from the church in any way at all. It was really as a teenager that I made a fundamental faith commitment that changed my life. But it was tough stuff, and it was a very different kind of context than the work that most of my ministry has been about.
I remember hearing a story about you in a youth service and somebody coming to you with a story that really helped shape your vision for the future.
Yeah, we were meant to be having a sportsman's or woman's service, which the ministry put on to bring in we had hundreds of young people that came along. But the fog fell on the Pennines and the rugby commentator that was meant to share his story didn't turn up. And the minister did the kind of thing that many of us would dread. He had to find some solution to this. So he brought in a gang of young people who were students at the local teacher training college to share their story. And it's the story of two of them from Ireland that made the biggest impact upon me, especially when I heard that one of them had lost his father in a pool of blood in the Troubles, and that things were very, very difficult in Ireland at that time. And I was impressed by this person who told me to go away and think about faith and think about Jesus and what that might mean for me.
And that wasn't without its own personal hurdles with your own feelings of self-esteem and depression as well.
Yeah, I think I need to, because we're now reaching this point, I need to say I've always had issues with that. Depression has been part of my life. I've never hidden it to those who've known me best, but it's been a reality, but it was a very deep reality at a point in time. I had medical care at the time and was helped by my local doctor. However, I've always felt that struggle was a very helpful part of my life, really, to help me to come through it and to be confident about things that really matter. And especially of the last few years, as you know, Simon, helping people who have been through that issue themselves.
Whilst those were the internal struggles for you, there were also external troubles. You had to pay for college. You had to get yourself through those.
Yes, I did. The college that I went to for 2 years didn't have any grants or fees that went with it. So it meant really working very hard. I remember Fridays used to be coming back from the grammar school and going to work on the Friday night all night, stacking shelves at the local supermarket, going on the Saturday morning to the local football club to be able, in the football season, the cricket club in cricket, to earn money, and then in the evening doing the cloakrooms. Yet it was important because I had to earn money to go to college.
But it was also very rounded. I mean, football was a passion of yours. You had your passions outside the ministry. Is it the Bolton Wanderers?
Oh dear, it's good that you've remembered them.
Someone had to.
Thank you.
Were you their chaplain?
Yes, I was. That was much later, really. I was fanatical. And yet when I got a responsible job where I was over an area, like a bishop over a large area, the approach was made to me, would I like to be to serve as a chaplain. Would I like to, you know? Free ticket, sitting in the ground, visiting the boys before training and that kind of thing. Of course I enjoyed it. It was a passion, and yet it was a very important passion because for working class Lancastrians, sport was very, very much an important thing. And one of the great things was it was the flat cap brigade who went to watch football. Not fancy, just ordinary people. It was very important.
What I love, though, is that throughout all your life, whether it was your mum sending money to help you in college, but also Carol walking beside you every step of the way, you've had good support.
Yes, and she would know, perhaps more than anybody else in this room and here, that this esteem problem has been an issue all through my life. When people would say, you've stood in front of thousands of people, you've done TV, you've done all that kind of stuff, but a feeling of really not quite feeling comfortable in that place. Should I be here? All of that's been a real thing. And she's been marvellous by me to ensure that I've been able to carry forward and go forward and do things.
So it's no surprise to me, after all the various countries that you spent your time in the ministry, it's with Carol that you walk along the beach discussing this new opportunity that you'd been given to come to Australia.
Yeah, look, I'd been out here because Carol had 2 brothers then. She only has 1 now. And those 2 brothers were here, and I had to do a sabbatical, what you call long service leave, and we do here in Oz. And I really felt that I had to have a good reason for coming because I was chairing the committee that validated all these things. And so I said, we'll go to Australia. I'd worked with Alan Walker, who was very much a part of the Australian scene. I said, I want to look at what Wesley Mission's about. So I came out here. We spent about 6 or 8 weeks here. I'd been in Asia and Africa. And we went back, and people said, what was it like in Australia? I said it was okay. I could never live there, was my response to that question. But we then received an email, and we went to the local library, which was the only place on the whole island that got any internet access. You can tell what it was like then. So Carol went on. I said, is there any messages there? And it took about half an hour to get on, you know. And I looked at the books at the other end of the library. She said, yes, but there's one here you ought to read. And the email said that they wanted me to become a person considered for this role. Well, we never slept. But we knew very well that when people ask you to do something, you're on the way to possibly going. So we knew for family and friends this was going to be a big decision in our lives. And so we walked up and down and said, OK. 3 days later, I think we said, we'll be considered.
I love the fact that in your role as Superintendent of Wesley Mission, you hosted the annual Easter sunrise service from the Sydney Opera House. And each year, which it was broadcast nationally, on radio and television, now live streamed as well. And music is such a big part of that service. You've chosen a song. Tell us what song you've chosen and why.
Well, I've chosen Darlene, who's a friend, Darlene Sheck, to sing, simply because I think she characterises, if you like, the combination of personal commitment with modern music. She's a great worship leader, and Darlene certainly has been a blessing in doing a number of things with me. And she's going to sing Hosanna.
The whole earth shakes.
beautiful version of Hosanna in the Sydney Opera House, where you and I would work together over the years. And we've discussed your ministry in the United Kingdom and your travels around the world with Wesley Mission. But I'd like to pick up on the theme of you being in Australia, and you hit the ground. What are your first impressions?
Well, it was September 2005, and we began here, and really it was a very big sea change in terms of what I was doing. For a number of months, I didn't do very much at all, except listen to people, and that's the right thing to do. And I did that for that period of month. But certainly it was a sea change. We speak the same language approximately. We do the same things approximately. We play cricket differently. And the truth is that it was a very big privilege to come here. But I'd left family. We'd left our parents at that time. We had 4. We now only have 1. And we'd left children who were just through their university and about to start their careers. It was a huge challenge. I remember when we were coming here, we got the family together and spoke to them, and we said this. We said, if the church can't hack this and the family can't take it, we won't come. And we made that quite clear, really. We felt that was the right thing to do before God. The family, strangely, all the family said go, not because they didn't like us, but because they realised it was the right thing for us to do. And the church were angry, I have to say. We had a nomination committee that I went to, but they were angry, but they said yes. Because they were really, we were only 4 years into an appointment, and they really were ready to do some exciting things, which fortunately they did most of them afterwards. But I think it was hard for them. So for us coming here, it's been a big, big challenge to leave and to come and make friends.
But also a big challenge with the enormity of the job. Where do you start when you're taking on something like that?
I'd like to think you start at the beginning, but you don't. You start with the issues that you have to hand at the time. And I had to be sure this was not just being a minister leading a church. It was far more than that. And I've always felt that was very, very important, to recognise Wesley Mission in its totality, in its breadth, in its services. And it was important to get a grasp on some of those and to face some of the challenges. And within the first week or 2 of the job, I faced some real challenges, and I've faced them ever since.
One of those challenges, but also blessings, was the path created by your predecessors.
Yes.
How do you approach filling such large shoes?
Well, look, if I'm honest with you, I've never really tried to do that for this reason. Probably because when I came here, I had my spurs and my medals already. If you're going to be in human terms and talk about what will prove that I can do, I was the chair of district over a large number. I had 100 ministers and about 140 churches that I had responsibility for. So I'd already done that. So I didn't come out to Australia to beat anybody, to be anything except myself. I'd worked with Alan Walker a little in Plymouth when he conducted some missional work there. I knew a little bit about the Wesley Mission, but I never saw myself as trying to compete with them, because they'd always win, wouldn't they? And when you've got the kind of issues I dealt with, which was to do with depression and esteem, it was silly to try to compete with people, because you'd always find yourself in a position that was less than good.
One passion that we'd see right through to today is your belief in the role of the media. Let's have a look at some of the highlights of Keith Garner in television.
Good morning and welcome to the Sydney Opera House for what will be a wonderful celebration of our faith in Jesus Christ.
Here we are in modern-day Turkey. I've got my Bible in one hand, the map in the other. We at Wesley Mission work with families, and we work with people who have real needs. John Wesley became a man of great influence, not only in his own day, but in the story of the world. We eat our Christmas meal with one eye on the media and with a conscious fear of what is next. Welcome to the Sea of Galilee. The most important person who ever lived spent so much of his time around these shores. The memorial service is really so that people who are grieving, whether it's a year after this event or it's many, many years, family, friends and people can come together. Welcome to Wesley Impact. I'm Keith Garner. How important is it to push the boundaries of your knowledge of the Christian faith?
Over 400 hours of television, 5 documentaries and series under your belt, but you also learnt the value of the soundbite.
Absolutely. I've said many times at night, to have 30 seconds on the evening main news is as important as any hours of programmes, because you speak into the reality of people's lives. Carol will remember that we had one occasion when we had the ABC, Channel 9 and Channel 10 all in the road lined up for interviews, and I said, this really is the best thing we can do for Wesley Mission. We can do religious programmes, but if we can speak into, as Christian people, the issues of poverty and wealth and all of those issues, then we'll be doing something that's, I think, good.
But you also had to be mindful of relationships and building that congregational side to Wesley.
Sure, and I think that's been important. I've never forgotten the fact that I'm a Christian minister. That to me matters as much as anything. If people to say, where do you feel most at home, I would say it is when I'm breaking a piece of bread and giving some wine to people and saying, this is what faith is all. I would say that that's the most important thing I ever did or do. The greatest privilege, if you like, of ministry at that point when you're feeding people, you're dealing with the things that really matter.
One of the things that I got involved with you was the Wesley Life Force Network, and to me, that seems to be a very important strand in your ministry.
It's been very important because I think I've shared a little bit of the personal stuff. I think suicide is a major issue. It's a major issue in Australia. I think when I came in, I was surprised because I thought with all the sunshine and all the things that make for Australia, to see the level of suicide, which is higher here than it is in Britain, percentage-wise, higher in most European countries, higher than many parts of the world. I was surprised. How could it be? But I soon realised that isolation is a part of that. We live in a country that's got these cities around the outside, but there's such a vast population here that live with very few neighbours, with the means, with the possibility and the isolation that very often leads to suicide. So it's been an important part of the work, and I'd like to think it just continued.
But also Wesley deals with so many issues at the coalface. What approach do you take on those hot button issues?
Look, I think you can't avoid issues. And I think if you attempt to avoid issues, you're making a big mistake if you're serious about the media and people. But it seems to me that if Jesus Christ, the Jesus Christ I meet in the Gospels, is for real, if his power, his grace is for real, then there shouldn't be any issue that we should not in some way be prepared to bring some meaning to. If I take the words of the Bible seriously, we need to be able to give a reason for the hope that's within us.
You've chosen a song filmed for your television program to close our conversation today. What song have you chosen this time?
Well, I'm always looking at our songs. I've chosen a song by Sarah Toth, who's a friend of mine, and Sarah is just recently sung at a meal that was organised to celebrate my ministry. Sarah's a wonderful person. Her family were Methodist missionaries in Africa. We've had that relationship, and I think I'm glad that Sarah's going to be in this show. She's singing "Rejoice, the Lord is King," a Charles Wesley hymn.
Lift up
Keith, we've dwelt now on how you came to Australia and your early experiences. When we meet again, I'm intrigued to learn more about your time here. There were the highs, but there were also the lows in this ministry. And I think it was in 2008 that you had a serious blow when you lost the employment services, not for the work that you were offering, but also for the $42 million it brought to the organisation.
Yes, it probably meant about 250 jobs, and it meant having to tackle that. But I knew the one thing I had to do was to work the best I could with our staff and our teams, and to ensure that they were given the support they needed by way of help, counselling, to provide the access to the resources to be able to find jobs afresh. All of that was a great challenge, but it was an enormous amount of money, and it was an amount of money that had the danger of uncoupling so much of the good that we were doing. But we came through it okay. We came through it okay.
We'll also find out about the passions that drove you. And from the very first interview you gave the Sydney Morning Herald, you were talking about your work with homelessness.
Homelessness is a major issue. For me, it's a gospel issue, and I'll explain why. It seems to me that if somebody doesn't have somewhere to live, that's a shame on the culture and context in the country in which he lives. And if you can start to have a passion for those who've got little and for those who haven't got anywhere to live, then you're doing a thing that was true to Jesus. And it seems to me to be such a Christian issue as far as I'm concerned, you know. And for me, I've always been driven by that, right back from the days when I came as a teenager into Christ. Mum and Dad didn't have lots of money, and we didn't have lots of the things that people might consider essential for their lives. And I became passionate about people who have nowhere to live tonight.
That's just some of the issues I'm looking forward to discussing with Keith next time we meet. But for the moment, would you please join me in thanking Keith Garner.
Wesley Mission walks alongside people of all ages struggling with homelessness, addictions, mental health issues and financial stress. To find out more, visit wesleymission.org.au.